It's a party in my city, yeah. Memphis Grizzlies winning streak, yeah. Luke Kennard 10 threes, yeah. It's a party in my city, yeah. Am I angering you, Skip Bayless? It's a party in my city, yeah. Hottest team in the league, yeah, is the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's talk about it on Locked On Grizzlies. Lock in with me.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There's a party in my city, yeah. Sorry. I was still throughout the break there. That's awkward. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Joe Mullinax. Welcome to this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Flying solo today. No DeMichael Cole. He'll be back with me tomorrow. But I'm so glad after our 3-day weekend here at Locked On Grizzlies that you are back with us. It is much appreciated. I am rested, rejuvenated, ready to go. I hope you are as well as we start the work week together. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. Also, make sure that you're subscribing, rating, reviewing, wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. You can also check us out over on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe to our channel. Continue to make us a part of your Grizzlies and NBA experience. It is much appreciated. I, Joe Mullinax, am the Grizzlies columnist for Bluff City Media. Make sure you're checking out Bluff City Media, bluffcitymedia.co/join. You can use the promo code Mullinax, get 10% off an annual subscription. Plus, you get a 10-day free trial starting right now. Go sign up today. Get all my content, plus amazing other content from writers like Parker Fleming, Sean Coleman, Memphis Tigers coverage, 901 FC soccer. If you're interested in Memphis sports, you should really be considering subscribing to Bluff City Media. So make sure you're checking it out there. And as I mentioned, my co-host Michael Cole is the Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis. He is literally in Atlanta as we speak, getting ready to head back to Memphis, obviously, for the rest of the road trip. The rest of the homestand. So, like I said, DeMichael will be back with me on our Tuesday episode, but you've got me today, and I'm very, very glad to be here with you because this is an easy episode to do. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling good. I'm feeling bouncy. I'm feeling like I got energy because the Memphis Grizzlies got energy. The Memphis Grizzlies are arguably the hottest team in the entire National Basketball Association. 6-game winning streak, winners of 9 of their last 10 games. And on Sunday night, they were able to beat a good Atlanta Hawks team at the very above average, maybe is the fairest way to put it, but an above average Atlanta Hawks team in their building, an impressive victory. So a lot of folks are going to write off what the Grizzlies have been doing of late because they're playing the Houston Rockets, they're playing the San Antonio Spurs, the Dallas Mavericks without Luka Doncic, one game without Kyrie Irving. They've hit a sweet spot of their schedule. We've talked about that time and time again here on Locked On Grizzlies. That shouldn't surprise you, dear listener, dear viewer. You, if you've been paying attention to DeMichael and I, knew that was coming. But they are taking advantage of that said soft spot. The Dallas Mavericks, for example, the previously mentioned Dallas Mavericks, collapsing 2 losses in Charlotte against the lowly Hornets, who are not actively in the playoff conversation. And yet the Mavericks, 2 bad losses. So even when you're playing teams like the Rockets or the Spurs, Atlanta, theoretically speaking, is worse than the Grizzlies. So Memphis should have won that game. But you still got to go win the game. Like we've talked about before, March Madness is happening. Final Four is coming up this weekend. Maybe 1 or 2 pros per team. Maybe. In the case of schools like FAU, maybe no pros. On the flip side of that, you've got the Houston Rockets that have 15 pros on their roster. So you still got to play the games, and the Grizzlies are playing the games, and they are playing them very well at this moment. In this first part of the show here, I want to focus on Joe Morant. As we go on in the program, you better believe I'm going to talk about Luke Kennard and his 3-point barrage that he displayed against the Houston Rockets. 10 made threes. Holy crap. How awesome is that guy? And then as we close out the show, we're going to take a look at how Memphis can continue this momentum in the week ahead. Obviously, the Los Angeles Clippers are the next team on the docket in terms of the schedule. After the Orlando Magic, the Magic are playing the Grizzlies on Tuesday. Then it's a Wednesday, Friday, Clippers home and home, similar to the Rockets one from earlier in the week. Or last week, I should say. So we'll talk more about that later. But first, the reintegration of John Morant has been a topic of conversation. It's been something that I harped on last week, if you remember correctly, talking about how Morant should always be a starter unless it involves the mental aspect of the game. Of course, it has come out in reports since then that it was Morant's idea. It absolutely did have to do with the mental aspect of his return from his time away in counseling, learning to better deal with stress, all of the things, obviously, that, John Morant has been battling over the span of this very long month of March. He appears to be coming out of it, and he started for the first time against the Atlanta Hawks since his return. He started for the first time, and he looked very much his old self, and he did things against the Hawks that should have Grizzlies fans extremely excited, and he also did things against the Hawks along with his partner in crime, Tyus Jones, the backup point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies, that should have Grizzlies fans feeling pretty optimistic moving forward. Morant's played about 29, 30 minutes in the Atlanta game, and he's still on a bit of a minutes restriction, working his way back into game shape. But 9 of 17 from the field, didn't make a single three, but 9 of 17 from the field, 6 assists, only 1 turnover. He's showing the capacity to get to the basket again. He's finishing strong. He was 9 of 11 from the free throw line, which is massively important for this Grizzlies team because no other Grizzlies player shot more than 2 free throws. So if Morant had struggled from the line, maybe this Atlanta game looks a lot different than it did, but he did not. He was very good in that area. Tyus Jones, 5 of 8 from the field, 13 points, 2 made threes, 5 assists, no turnovers. This is the Tyus Jones that the Memphis Grizzlies need if they hope to still make noise in the playoffs without Brandon Clark, with an uncertain future of Steven Adams. They need this Tyus to be able to, when Morant is off the floor, maintain the Grizzlies' offensive efficiency. And that is exactly what Tyus did in this basketball game. So kudos to him, because if you've been paying attention here on Locked On Grizzlies, I have been a critic of Tyus this year in terms of how much of a drop-off there is from Tyus the starter to Tyus the reserve. It's one thing to say that you treat yourself like a starter in the National Basketball Association. It's quite another thing to physically produce at that level, regardless of where you are in the pecking order. So it's great to see that Tyus and Ja both played well against the Hawks. And again, the Hawks are a good basketball team. We can't discount that. They are, mediocre basketball team. They are what their record says they are, 37-38 after the loss to the Grizzlies. They're mediocre. But they've had some coaching turnover. Quinn Snyder is obviously getting his feet under himself. The Hawks were 21-15 at home going into that game. The Grizzlies were favored, but it wasn't by much, and the Grizzlies beat the spread in this particular game. So they found a way to win in a place that it was going to be difficult for them to win. And it started with Ja Morant, but it wasn't just Ja Morant. It also was Tyus Jones, as I mentioned before. Desmond Bane, 3 for 6 from 3, 11 of 18 from the field. To do the math on that, he was 8 of 12 on 2-point shots. If Desmond Bane is going to finish that well at the rim, if Desmond Bane is going to be that effective in the mid-range and be that true 3-level scorer that the Grizzlies need him to be, they don't need to trade for Bradley Beal anymore because he's on the roster, right? And I think that's one of the best compliments that I can pay Bane at this stage. He has been extremely productive. When your backcourt is playing at that level together, Ja and Bane scoring over 50 points combined, good luck to the rest of the NBA. There's not many backcourts that can compare, right? De'Aaron Fox, Herter out in Sacramento, they might want to have a word. There's other twosomes that could potentially be in that mix, but I'll take John Bane over most of them when they are playing the way that they did against the Atlanta Hawks. So Ja is finding his footing, which is good news. That's only going to be better things for the Grizzlies moving forward. But it wasn't just the starting backcourt of the Memphis Grizzlies that was extremely impressive against the Hawks. It was a certain reserve, not just against Atlanta, but also on Friday against the Houston Rockets that has really shown his value of late. We're going to talk more about Luke Kennard, Nardo Bombs, next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by PrizePicks. Big fan of PrizePicks, and you should be as well. Highly recommend that you check them out if you haven't already done so. Again, Tuesday night, Grizzlies are playing the Magic. Maybe you think Ja's going to score more than 24.5 points. Maybe you think Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to have more than 2.5 blocks. Desmond Bane's going to make more than 3.5 threes. It's a lot of fun and a lot of easy to put those types of choices and more in at PrizePicks. You pick 2 to 6 players that they'll score, rebound, block, etc., more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you against the projections available. You can do it for college basketball, the pros, NHL, MLB's getting ready to start up, Major League Baseball, literally any sport under the sun, it seems. You can do PrizePicks through. They can be made, these entries, in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy with safe and fast withdrawals, operational in over 30 states as well as in Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign-up for an instant deposit match up to $100. You better believe I'm going to ask for my flowers when it comes to Luke Kennard next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax, my co-host, Michael Cole, finishing up in Atlanta, literally as we speak, heading back to Memphis for the rest of the homestand. The Magic on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday against the Clippers. So Michael will be back with me soon, hopefully, for our Tuesday episode. Thank you for starting your week off with me here on Locked On Grizzlies. And Ja Morant was the topic of our conversation earlier in the show, and he did an awesome job transitioning from his reserve role to his obvious starting role in the organization. There's somebody that has been a reserve for Memphis, will likely stay a reserve for Memphis, understandably so, and is going to be massively important. We talked about if Steven Adams is not able to come back at full strength, when you get the treatment in your knee that Steven Adams got at the age of 29, saying he's going to be back in 3 or 4 weeks, that's maybe a bit optimistic. So we'll have to see where Steve-O's at here in the next week or so. Maybe we'll get an update heading into the playoffs that the Grizzlies officially clinched on Friday night against the Houston Rockets. And again, the hottest team in the NBA, part of that is their current slate of games, but you got to win the games as they come across your schedule. That's exactly what the Grizzlies did on Friday, not just Sunday. And that's exactly what Luke Kennard led the team to do in that contest. Now, I don't want to dispute or discourage or take away from what Desmond Bane did, 25 points again against the Houston Rockets. He scored 50 points across his last 2 games. Shout out to Bane. 10 of 13 shooting, extremely efficient. And again, Bane was 5 of 6 from 2-point land. So he is just red hot offensively right now, back to what he was doing at the start of the season before his toe injury. I just want to, just throw out the stat line of one Luke Kennard. 24 minutes played. He took 11 threes and he made 10 of them. That's a 91.9% accuracy rate in terms of only missing 1 shot. Every single shot that Luke Kennard took was from beyond the arc. Luke Kennard did not grab a single rebound. Luke Kennard had 3 assists with no turnovers, 1 steal. He played 24 minutes, 30 points, tied for second team best, plus 28 on the evening against the Houston Rockets. I told you so. Wait, hold on. DeMichael's not here, so I forgot. Pat myself on the back, right? Luke Kennard is elite at shooting 3-point shots. Is he going to make 10 threes every night? No, of course not. But you know what Luke Kennard did against the Atlanta Hawks on Sunday night? 5 of 10 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3. It's not rocket science. He is one of the very best 3-point shooters in the National Basketball Association. He's underrated as a secondary facilitator. Underrated. When given the opportunity, he is able to create for others. Again, we saw that against the Rockets, 3 assists. Against the Atlanta Hawks, 2 assists. I'm not saying he's setting the world on fire, but I am saying that if you over pursue him, if you don't respect him as a dribble penetrator, creator off of the pick and roll, he has the physical capacity to hurt you. He can make you pay for just thinking of him as a shooter, although that is obviously what he is elite at in the National Basketball Association. I told you so. Let the dude be elite. Let him be elite. Give him opportunities. And to the credit of Taylor Jenkins, you have seen more sets for Luke Kennard. You have seen him have more opportunity to shoot threes off of off-ball screens. You have enabled Luke Kennard to have more set looks at the rim. It's not just dribble, dribble, kick. Dribble, dribble off the pick and roll kick. There's actual plays being run for Luke Kennard to get him looks at the basket, and he's rewarding the Grizzlies for it. He is immensely important because he helps your half-court offense immensely. In the absence of Steven Adams, just wait till Steven Adams, if Steven Adams comes back, just wait until that dude is in the fold. Because you can trot out lineups of Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Luke Kennard, Jaren Jackson Jr., Steven Adams. Good luck to anybody that has to go against that, offensively speaking. Are there defensive holes? You betcha. You figure out the mismatch on the perimeter, you attack it. It's not perfect, right? But even Luke's defensive woes have been over-exaggerated, in my humble opinion. Does he have a bad mistake every once in a while? Yes. Is it because of poor lateral foot speed? Not all the time. Some of the issues that we saw earlier in Luke's arrival in Memphis was because he was learning the scheme. He had been in Los Angeles for some time. Before that, he was in Detroit. The Grizzlies play a different type of defensive scheme than those teams. So him understanding the angles that Memphis wants him to take in terms of closeouts, him being in a position to help off on shooters away from his responsibility defensively, the different schemes and the different coverages that Memphis may run, that all can be overwhelming, even for a veteran-ish player like Luke Kennard. So he comes into the fold and he does some really impressive things from beyond the arc while still reminding everyone that he has the capacity to do other things, especially offensively, if you over pursue the three-point shooting. He will enable so much more room because you can't help off of Luke Kennard and you can't help off of Desmond Bane. And then if you really just kind of want to punt defense a little bit, and maybe you're down in a playoff series, you need to kickstart the offense. Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Luke Kennard, Jaren Jackson Jr., Santi Aldama. You have 4 legitimate three-point threats, 2 of them being arguably the 2 best in the National Basketball Association in Bane and Kennard. And Ja Morant's running the pick and roll. Are you going to help off of one of those guys? Probably. But you're leaving open a good shooter. And if you don't help off, Ja Morant has proven time and again that he can dominate in the paint despite his size. Kennard makes that easier to do, especially in the half court. If it's John Conchar, even if his percentages have been strong and the advanced numbers love him, you got to shoot the darn ball in order for that to work. David Roddy, much more versatile player than Kennard, can play a small ball 4. Roddy has had some success, but he does not have the elite skill set of a Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard is elite as a three-point shooter. Let the elite talent on your team play. Let them get run. As you approach the playoffs, Kennard should be an offensive sub for Dillon Brooks. The closing lineup should probably at this stage be Jaren, Ja, Dillon, Ja, Desmond, Dillon, Jaren, Steven Adams, defensively. Offensively, you should be taking out Dillon Brooks and putting in Luke Kennard if you need a shot. That should be how it looks in the playoffs. Kennard has proven that he is an electric shooter, and you have to give that guy opportunity to be the elite floor spacer that you need him to be. Because between him and Adams, a lot of your half-court issues are solved if Adams returns. And if Adams doesn't come back, partially your problem is solved because you have a legitimate threat that teams have to respect at all times from beyond the arc in Luke Kennard. That is extremely helpful. Again, he's not going to make 10 threes every night. Is he capable of being a 44-ish% three-point shooter on a nightly basis? You betcha. Because that's what he's been throughout his entire career. So kudos to the Grizzlies for bringing him in. He's going to help a lot, not just now, but moving forward. We'll talk about the Grizzlies' schedule ahead, how the front court continues to shine in other ways, all those things next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, I love it when I get a chance to talk about Built Bar. Built Bar March Madness is here. The bracket is here. You've got a favorite bar, a favorite puff. Go make it count and go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorites. I'm voting for the coconut puff. That's my personal favorite. If you want the Grizzlies to win, then you'll be voting for that bar too. Support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You've got to try it. It's the best protein bar out there ever. They're amazing. They are delicious, low in sugar, 100% real chocolate, high in protein filling. Got to give them a shot. And you got to run to builtmarchmadness.com right now. Vote for your favorite bar or puff. Pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick. We're talking the week ahead and the Grizzlies front court next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Joe Mullinax, for this Monday edition of the program. No to Michael Cole. He will be back with me, hopefully, for Tuesday's show, looking ahead to the Orlando Magic in particular. But obviously, this week, the Grizzlies close out a home stand. The Atlanta Hawks game was one random game in a series of mostly home contests. Memphis continues that journey on Tuesday with the Orlando Magic, another team that they should theoretically beat. Orlando playing better basketball at times, but the Magic are not actively trying to be what the Grizzlies are trying to be, and the Grizzlies are one of the best home teams in the NBA. So theoretically speaking, considering Memphis is 32-5 at home, no other team has that few home losses, considering the Orlando Magic are 13-24 on the road and are 11 games under 500. It should be a Memphis win. And then the wounded Los Angeles Clippers, who over 500, obviously Kawhi Leonard getting into playoff form. But without Paul George, what will the Clippers be able to do in that Wednesday and Friday home and home that the Grizzlies don't have to travel for? All that will be answered up ahead in the week ahead. If the Grizzlies go 2-1 over that stretch, that would put them at 49-28. I think that is more than realistic. You could argue that the Grizzlies should win all three games. But again, if you're giving the Clippers a little bit of respect, maybe they split those two and Memphis ends this current stretch at home. Because again, they play Orlando, they play the Clippers twice, and then the rest of the season, they only have one game at home. The next or four of their final five are on the road, and they close with a 3-game road trip: New Orleans, Milwaukee, and Oklahoma City. And all of those teams could potentially have something to play for. So maybe not as easy of a closeout as the Grizzlies would like. So they got to make as much ground gained up as possible here. And they have an opportunity to continue to separate in the Western Conference. They are 2 games up on the Kings still for the 2 seed. Obviously, Sacramento can still catch them, but considering how difficult the Kings' schedule is, how easy Memphis has been, and again, on Tuesday night, will continue to be against the Magic, the Kings perhaps are behind the 8 ball there. And Memphis will not be able to fall below the 4 seed at this stage, which is good news for them, obviously. It's unlikely the Suns catch them anyway. They are 8 games back in the loss column to the Grizzlies as of this recording. So every game Memphis wins is another step towards securing that 2 seed, a step towards potentially avoiding the Golden State Warriors, currently the 6th seed in the Western Conference, waiting until the second round, at least theoretically speaking, to play Golden State. I don't want to disrespect Sacramento and the work they've done, but I think most folks would take the Warriors over the Kings in that series. Most folks would probably take the Warriors over the Grizzlies in that series. But when you look at these next 3 games, the thing that I am most keeping an eye on, the thing that and I'll ask DeMichael's take on this as well when we see him hopefully for tomorrow's show, how he feels about this front court and how they continue to compete without Steven Adams, because the front court has been something that we haven't talked about much on this episode of the show. We've talked about John Morant. We've talked about Luke Kennard, the backcourt, Tyus Jones having a lot of success, Desmond Bane being extremely efficient. The Grizzlies front court has not been something to shake a stick at. Xavier Tillman, 15 points on 10 shots, 8 rebounds. Jaren Jackson Jr., 15 points on 10 shots, 8 rebounds, 5 blocks, 3 steals, 8 stocks, including a highlight block that you got to see to believe. If you missed it, make sure you're finding the highlights on YouTube. After you watch Locked On Grizzlies, go find the 10-minute summary of the game. I promise you that block will be there. It was initially called a foul on Jaren, but it was overturned after review. 8 stocks. That dude's the defensive player of the year. He is. No offense to Brook Lopez. The Milwaukee Bucks are great. He's got Drew Holiday. He's got Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's got other talented defenders. Chris Middleton. Not to say that the Grizzlies, Dylan Brooks, he's probably in that first or second team all defense conversation. More than likely second team. But Jaren is dominant, and he is able to do so much as a defensive player because of his timing, his length, his athleticism, his ability to use his body to his advantage. All of the things that we've talked about here, there, and everywhere with Locked On Grizzlies. DeMichael has said it continuously. So have I. His offensive game continues to evolve, but his defensive game is where he is going to help the Grizzlies eventually compete for a championship, maybe as soon as this season. But Xavier Tillman deserves credit for the way that he has played. Again, 3 steals and 2 blocks for X against the Hawks. You see the performance of guys like David Roddy, Santi Aldama, maybe not as strong as you'd like to see. Aldama didn't score a point against the Hawks. For Roddy, it was just 6 points. But the capacity to rebound, again, Roddy's versatility, Aldama's capacity to space the floor. He didn't make a 3 against Atlanta, but his percentages this year are strong. He, again, is a player that you have to respect on the perimeter, that you don't necessarily have to respect Xavier Tillman that way, but Tillman is a much better rebounder and screener than Aldama at this stage of their careers. The depth of the Memphis Grizzlies is extremely impressive. It's extremely impressive. They have put themselves in a position without Brandon Clark, without Steven Adams for a stretch of time, without John Morant, to get the 2 seed back. There was a time where the Kings were the 2 seed and the Grizzlies were the 3, and the Kings had national articles being read about them. Is this Sacramento's seed to lose? And here on Locked On Grizzlies and elsewhere, like in Bluff City Media, I would tell you, the Kings got a tough schedule. Let's see if they're able to hold on. And Sacramento has not been able to hold on. The Kings have tailed off a little bit, as has kind of been predicted because of that schedule. 7-3 in their last 10, certainly nothing to be ashamed of. But with the Grizzlies being 9-1 against an easier schedule, they've been able to gain some ground back. So I really do feel that front court advantage is a major one for the Grizzlies. And heaven forbid if Steven Adams does indeed return, because if Steven Adams is on the floor and he has the ability to let Jaren play that free safety role, to be that screener offensively, to gather offensive rebounds for the Grizzlies in the half court and make that offense even more efficient than it's become, thanks in part to the addition of Luke Kennard, the Grizzlies have a legitimate shot in the Western Conference. The Denver Nuggets have cooled off considerably. They are not the juggernaut that they appeared to be. Denver is 5-5 in their last 10 without any major injury issues. The Grizzlies are only 3 games back at Denver with 8 or 9 to play. Are the Grizzlies going to catch the Denver Nuggets in 8 games? Probably not. But again, a theoretical Western Conference final against the Nuggets, that's not as scary as it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Grizzlies hold on to the 2 seed. Maybe they take on the Pelicans. Maybe they take on the Lakers in the first round, the Thunder. Who the heck knows in this crazy Western Conference, right? There's 6 teams with a legitimate possibility of being in that play-in. Memphis gets one of those teams. Maybe Golden State falls back. I mean, in theory, the Clippers could also fall back. They're just a game and a half out of the play-in as of this moment. Maybe the Suns get ice cold. Feels less likely with Phoenix. But you catch my drift. The Grizzlies can't necessarily worry about trying to play for a matchup in the first round because they have no idea who it's going to be because it's so close. The one guarantee is they won't play the Nuggets or the Kings in the first round. Literally anybody from Phoenix all the way down to the Utah Jazz. It could be any of those teams. So the Grizzlies have to continue to worry about themselves. They have to pick up wins like against the Orlando Magic, against a wounded Clippers team. They need to at least split that. And they have to keep the Kings at bay, because if they're able to hold on to that 2 and get out of a first-round series, say it's Sacramento or Golden State, perhaps, the Grizzlies would have home court. And again, you could easily argue that the Grizzlies are the best home team in the National Basketball Association this year, 32-5. No other team can boast a record with only 5 losses at home. The Grizzlies are finding their stride at the right time of year, thanks to their front court, their back court. Essentially, the whole team is playing pretty well at this stage. Hopefully that energy continues going into the Orlando Magic game tomorrow. Thank you so much for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen today. Now for your second listen, you should go check out Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. As I mentioned, DeMichael will hopefully be back to me for the Tuesday show. We'll talk about his trip to Atlanta. We'll also talk about the big Orlando Magic game. 3 games in 4 nights. It's a back-to-back for the Grizzlies. They'll take on the Magic on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, they have the Los Angeles Clippers. So how do they manage those minutes? How do they play all that out? Heading into a pretty important last stretch of home games, because 4 of their last 5 of the season, the regular season, is going to be or are going to be on the road. It's nice to say of the regular season. The Memphis Grizzlies have clinched the playoffs once again. I want to leave you on that. The Grizzlies are a playoff team. They've clinched the Southwest Division. I know divisional titles don't mean as much as maybe they once did, but still, for the Grizzlies, it's their second divisional title in the history of the organization. Still matters to me. I'm sure that is a sign of success, consistent success, that Zach Kleiman, the Grizzlies GM, Taylor Jenkins, the Grizzlies head coach, the entire organization, top to bottom, has talked about being consistently successful and being in a position to be a contender. At this stage of the season, why not the Memphis Grizzlies? They have just as good of an argument as anybody else in the Western Conference as of this moment that they could come out of the West and take on one of, assuming, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, or Boston. Those seem to be the big 3. Don't sleep on Cleveland. But those top 3, probably going to take one of them over the field in the East. Who comes out of the West? The Grizzlies have as good a shot of it as anyone. Thank you so much for checking out Locked On Grizzlies today. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, liking, commenting over on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We are proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we are so grateful that you have made us a part of your Grizzlies and NBA content experience. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully with my good buddy, DeMichael Cole. Until Tuesday, until next time, stay locked in, Grizzlies fans. I'm Joe Mullinax. This is Locked On Grizzlies.